What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video. I'm your host, Mike, and today's video is going to be on my favorite must-draft defenseman going into the season. If you're enjoying the content so far this year, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We have so much more content that we're rolling out in the next little bit, so stay tuned for that. For those who are interested in Fantasy Puck Patreon League, click that link in the description below. Head on over to our Patreon. If you have any questions, make sure you join the Discord and send me a message personally. Without further ado, let's jump into the must-draft defenseman video. The first defenseman for this video is John Carlson of the Washington Capitals. I'm so high on John Carlson because everybody is so low on him this year. Last season was the worst season of his entire career. A career worst 1.9 points per 60, but a career high 8.0 shots per 60, which went completely unnoticed. He's at ADP 95 right now on Yahoo. He is dropping way below where he should be going. He's defenseman 17 off the board, and there's still a lot of upside here for Carlson. He still plays big minutes, 23 plus per night. Last season was 23 minutes and 23 seconds, and he was shooting at one of the best rates of his entire career, not to mention the 2.2 blocks per game, which is also the second best rate of his career. A freak incident last season, a puck to the face, kept him out for majority of the season. He only played 40 games, so it's not like he missed time for a nagging injury like a lower body, a back injury, an arm injury. He missed time because he had a puck to the face. It's very, very similar to what we're seeing with Dougie Hamilton, and you're going to hear me say this in my bounce back players video, where Dougie Hamilton was injured, he broke his jaw, he came back, he struggled a lot, and then the next season he had the best season of his career. Now, I'm not saying Carlson's set up to have the best season of his career because the Capitals really aren't going to be as offensively good as they were in previous seasons, but they still have Ovechkin. Pacioretty might be making a comeback this season. They're a very, very good offensive team, and Carlson's going to be leading the pack on that strong defensive core. So since 2020, he has the 5th best points per 60, the 14th best shot rate per 60. We have him in our rankings as defenseman 11 off the board, and right now at defenseman 17, you're getting huge value, making him a must-draft defenseman. Moving on to the next defenseman, we have Mortiz Seider of the Detroit Red Wings. Very similar to John Carlson. I find so many people are sleeping on Seider this season relative to last year, and for really no reason. He had a sophomore slump last year, but ended up picking up a lot in the second half. He started getting back that power play 1 duties, but his peripherals are so elite. He is just one of 2 defensemen with at least 140 shots, 200 plus hits, and 190 plus blocks. And now mix in his offensive ability and some power play, and you have a fully complete fantasy defenseman. Now at ADP 84, he's dropped around 40 spots from what we saw last season. I do think this Red Wings made some good offseason acquisitions in Alex DeBrincat. They brought in Justin Holl, Shane Gostisbehere. Now Gostisbehere is kind of a concern. He probably will get that power play 1 duty. But with Seider, the reason why it's not as bad is because of how good his floor is with his peripherals. You get a complete fantasy defenseman. If you're in points leagues, he's very good. But if you're in roto leagues, he's even better. He's on sale this season. It's very safe at ADP 84. We have him as defenseman 6 in points leagues right now, and he's being drafted as defenseman 14. I really like Seider. I'm on him this season, and I want him on all my fantasy teams. Moving on now to arguably my favorite defenseman going into the season, Mikhail Sergachev of the Tampa Bay Lightning. There's so much to like from Sergachev this season, but I know a lot of you are thinking right now, Victor Hedman's there, and I get it. But the thing with Sergachev is he took over Hedman's spot. Hedman's now play more of a defensive role, and Sergachev has now stepped into this power play 1 quarterback on a Tampa Bay team that's ranked 3rd for power play goals over the last 3 seasons, and they were 3rd last season again. He had the 5th most power play time last season in the last 30 games, adding 12 power play points. So near the stretch, when they were entering a fight for the playoffs, especially in that really, really tough division, he was the guy that was on the top power play unit. Now, this is the long-awaited breakout of Sergachev since that really crazy and now lopsided Drouin trade. And he had his breakout last year, 64 points in 79 games. I really think that's going unnoticed given how good some of the defensemen did last year. 156 shots, 128 hits, 149 blocks, extremely good peripherals, very close to Seider, but now mix in this offensive opportunity on the top power play unit for one of the best power plays in the league. He could be a league winner, and he can also finish as a top 5 defenseman. So I'm all over Sergachev this season. I actually think he could be a Norris candidate depending on the success he does have in that top power play unit. He is a defenseman. I am looking forward all my drafts. I think he should be going at least ADP 50 to 70. Defensemen are going a little bit earlier than usual this season, and I'll get into it in my draft strategy video. But Mikhail Sergachev is a must draft defenseman this season. Getting more into the deeper defensemen now. I gave you some guys in that mid-range, but now we're going to try and pick a little bit deeper. We got Michael Matheson of the Montreal Canadiens. He is their line one, power play one defenseman, their workhorse. He played 23 plus minutes last season as in his first season with the Montreal Canadiens. He's always been touted as a highly offensive defenseman, especially when he was in Florida and Pittsburgh, but now he finally has the opportunity. So last season, 48 games played, 34 points, 126 shots, 80 blocks, very good shot volume, very good point upside. But what I want to note here is over the last 30 games for the Canadiens, he had 24 points and 82 shots. Keep in mind there was no Cole Caulfield during that time, and he was still producing very, very good. So over that time, he had the 8th most points and the 6th most shots amongst all defensemen. He plays big minutes. He's going to play big minutes again this season, and there's really no competition there. Caden Gooley's an up-and-coming defenseman, more of a defensive defenseman, and Michael Matheson should still man that pair one, power play one role with hopefully a healthy Caulfield and a little bit better of a Montreal team. He missed the first 2 months of the season, so the injuries didn't happen during the season. It was more of an off-season thing. I really like him this season. He's drafted way later than he should be. He's just taken in 5% of drafts right now. If you're in a plus-minus league, I definitely would be a little bit more concerned. But for those not in plus-minus leagues, I want Mike Matheson. He's one of the last power play one defensemen to go off the board. We just did a 14-team draft, and he was taken really late. So at ADP 165, Matheson's great value right now. Shout out to Chris and those in the Discord for getting my eye on Zach Werenski this season. ADP 154. He's being drafted in just 38% of drafts. He is a workhorse line one, power play one defenseman, similar to Matheson, just not being drafted as much as he should be. Now, there's a lot of injury concern here and a lot of risk, but I think at ADP 154 and going undrafted in some leagues, there is very low risk drafting Werenski. Sports hernia 3 years ago kept him out, and he tore his labrum last year and missed most of the season after starting the season off with 8 points in the first 13 games. I have his stats on the board right now with 2021-2022. He had 11 goals, 37 assists, 216 shots, and 95 blocks. I really like Werenski. He's averaged 25 minutes a night in that 21-22 season. He was at about 23 minutes and 40 seconds last year, but the minutes for defensemen always go up near the end of the season, and he was hurt really early on. It's hard to sell out in this team. They have a lot of talent. They have Gaudreau, Laine, Fantilli, Marchenko, and Jaracek coming up, the big prospect they drafted a couple years ago. I really like this team. I like the foundation of it. They just need to stay healthy, and that wasn't the case last year. So now we're going to get Werenski, a line one, power play one defenseman, workhorse on the defensive end, on a team that hopefully should be better this season. Over the last 3 years, it's hard to compare because he hasn't really been healthy, but his 0.43 goals per 60 ranks 16th best amongst defensemen. His 7.0 shots per 60 ranks 10th best, and 0.4 individual goals per 60 also ranks 10th best. So he generates chances, he generates offense. He's also a former 20 goal scorer in just 61 games. The talent's there, the upside's there. It is low risk at this ADP, making him a must-draft defenseman this season. Finally, guys, the last defenseman for this video, and oh, I am ready for the comment section on this one. Jake Sanderson of the Ottawa Senators. This is going to be super controversial, but I am a huge Jake Sanderson fan, not an Ottawa Senators fan, but I think this is going to be his coming out year. Now, I get it. I know what you're thinking already. I see the typing. Jacob Chikrin, Thomas Chabot. I get it. Both are injury risk, but when healthy, they were not on power play one for the Ottawa Senators. So post-trade, so when they acquired Chikrin, Sanderson averaged 23 minutes and 5 seconds average time on ice, 23rd most amongst defensemen, while playing the 5th most power play minutes on their team, first amongst defensemen for the Ottawa Senators, more than Thomas Chabot. So down the stretch, over their last 30 games, he played the 5th most power play minutes, first amongst their defensemen. He had a very solid rookie season, 77 games played, 32 points, 17 points on the power play, 132 shots, 147 blocks. So his block numbers are extremely, extremely good. Shot numbers a little bit lower than I want to see, but still at ADP 170, this guy was touted as one of the best defenseman prospects in all of hockey 2 years ago. He was solid last year. You saw a lot of praise in the Brady Tkachuk interview recently about how good Jake Sanderson actually is. I'm super excited to see what he has in store this season on a very, very good Ottawa Senators team offensively. So I like Sanderson at ADP 170. He's going basically undrafted. There is no risk taking him with your last pick with the hopes that he does sustain that power play one opportunity and the big minutes that we saw last year. I get it. I get the competition's very heavy. I asked the chat in the live stream recently about what they thought about him, and it was the same reaction. I'm curious to what people think about Jake Sanderson. I'm high on him this season. I'm taking him in my 14-team league super late as my defenseman 5 or 6, with hopefully the upside to him for finishing as my defenseman 3 or 4. That will do it for the must-draft defenseman video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.